above the streets and houses, up above the streets and houses, up above the streets and houses.
Hello, everybody. My name's Ben Robbins from the Lost World of Movie Props, and I'm here today with Ronnie Le Drew. How are you doing, sir?
I'm well, thank you very much.
How you been keeping? You been keeping all right?
Yeah, I have actually. I have a slight throat. My voice is slightly different from what I can hear in my own ear. But apart from that, I'm absolutely fine. I think I was giving some awards out in a very noisy place on Sunday, and I think I might have just sort of overdone the old voice, but it's not too bad. At least I can still speak, which is the main thing.
Yeah, you're coming through nice and clear to me. So yeah, it sounds perfect, buddy.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
So the award, was that what we saw you post on your social medias recently? Was that the night you were talking about?
That's right. Yes, they were the Offies. Basically, they're the off West End theatre shows. I mean, it includes musicals, drama, you lot, everything. And
Nice.
I gave the award for the best children's writers. And that was great fun. I've never done anything like that before. And it was great fun, opening the envelope, taking out the thing, reading the nominees, and then suddenly saying, and the winner is, and everyone, there's about 900 people there. And they're like,
Oh, wow.
And up came the bloke, and I shook his hand and gave him the thing. And then he did his thing. And we got given a free glass of champagne, which was quite nice. Anyway, there you go.
You can't go wrong with free alcohol at any event.
Absolutely right.
So you're happy for me to throw a few questions at you? Let's
Please.
talk about your career and basically how you come up. So
Lovely, thank you. Please do.
So, you're a puppeteer. So what is a puppeteer? Is there a difference between is there a different terms or way to describe
Yes, I mean, I suppose a puppeteer doesn't use his own body to perform a character, but uses, I suppose, an object made out of wood or plastic. And he performs to an audience with this object, who when watching, this is the audience, the puppeteer, his skills, it hopefully is captivated by the character that he or she is operating. And that's, I wrote that down because I thought you might ask me that question. And it's quite difficult to sort of think of it in few sentences. But anyway, I hope that's clear to everybody.
What types of different puppets are there out there you can use? Is there just hand ones? Because I've only ever seen hand ones and ones on string. What different types are there out there that you can use?
There's a whole lot now, actually. Started off probably with glove puppets, the hand puppets that just you fit over your hand, hence the hand, glove puppet. And then you've got what we call rod puppets, and they're the ones that have rods to their heads and to their hands, and you operate the rods at the bottom, and sometimes you have a little rod inside the head to make it work as well. And then you have string puppets, which you've mentioned. They're called, in this country, we call them marionettes. It's the French word for all puppets, but we just sort of do that. And then we have a mixture, we have shadow puppets, which are the ones that you put against a flat screen, and then you operate usually with rods. And the light behind shows the shadow of the screen to the audience, and they see the shadow and the movement there. And now in the last, 20 or 30 years or whatever, we've had puppets that include a lot of those, combinations. So you've got what we call tabletop puppets, which are like little rod puppets with tiny rods in, and you can work them on a table or a platform just in front of you. Usually the puppeteer is visible behind, not lit normally, but the puppet is lit, but you can still see the puppeteer there. And that can be worked usually, by say 3 people. So one person will do its legs, and another person will be doing its arms, and then the one doing the head. So you've got, a whole lot of brilliant movement. And I suppose that's all the sort of types, but again, you get combinations of all. I mean, I've seen marionettes where you have a string puppet, and then you have people in black behind, and they're hidden from the audience, and they can work an extra hand or a rod to make the hand or the arm move even more sophisticatedly. and that's quite clever. So yeah, there's lots of combinations.
I mean, I suppose when you were growing up as a kid, it was mainly the marionettes and like the hand puppets. So was that your first exposure to seeing puppets? Was it on TV or did you see them in real life?
Well, I was lucky enough to see them on TV, I suppose. I mean, my background is I lived in Stockwell with my mother and my sister and my father, and we used to watch sort of children's telly when it came on. This was I'm going back to the sort of late 50s, that sort of time, and there were things like Sooty and Sweep were on. Believe it or not, they started 75 years ago.
Really?
I mean, extraordinary, with Harry Corbett, and then his son took over, and Matthew Corbett, and now Richard Goodell is doing it now. But yeah, I saw Sooty and Sweep, which are the glove puppets. And actually, I'll tell you what, I'll be very naughty and I'll just show you my Sooty and Sweep. There's Sooty. There, oh, he's waving. How lovely. You're all waving back. I can see that. Anyway, there you go. And that's Sooty. And I was given that because I worked with Harry Corbett and Matthew Corbett for a short time. And there's his magic wand. So he's, Izzy, let's get busy. He's showing his age a bit now, but he is quite an old one. But and then, of course, there's only one Sooty. I shouldn't have said he's quite an old one. Anyway, and then we've got Sweep. I may as well do all this now because it's quite nice to show the puppets that I've actually got. And this is Sweep coming out. Come on, Sweep, and you come. Or go away from the camera. There you go. Give everybody a wave. That's lovely. And I'm just going to do his voice. There you go. And he goes, and I have a reed that I put in my mouth to make his squeak work. He's showing you his badge. What's the badge say, Sweep? Can you whisper? Oh, it's what's it say anyway? It says, I love Sweep. Do you love yourself? Oh, you do? Oh, right. Okay. Bye-bye. Yes, bye-bye, Sweep. That's Sweep. Anyway, I was very lucky. So I saw Sooty and Sweep when I was a kid, but I also saw a lot of the Jerry Anderson shows. I actually saw the very early one, which was called Twizzle, which was made, I think, in the late 50s. And it was quite early puppets, marionettes. They were probably, Jerry would say, they weren't as sophisticated as the ones that they ended up with. Well, of course they weren't. People were changing and putting new ideas into things. Anyway, I saw that. And then I think after that I loved it, actually. It was called Four Feather Falls, which was a cowboy one. And I loved that. And funny enough, it was the actor Nicholas Parsons, who's terribly English, but he played, sadly no longer with us, but he played Tex Tucker, the American cowboy. And then I think there was the wonderful actor who was in the Carry On films, and he played the horse. And I'm trying to remember his name, which has gone out of my head, but I'm having a senior moment, I'm afraid. But anyway, there was this. That was fun. I loved that, and it was a bit more sophisticated. And then, of course, you got onto the more sort of I suppose the space ones, which were, not so much space, I suppose a Stingray, which was wonderful, which was this marvelous sort of submarine that sort of went underwater. And I was always amazed how they've got fishes, swimming by, real fish. And this thing was going in. And basically it was an aquarium in front of the camera, and they did all their stuff behind it. They had some water effects to make it look as though it was actually in there, but very clever. And then, of course, probably the most favourite for most people is Thunderbirds. And and that was, of course, there was the father and these brothers who ran this sort of, what was it? It was the whole, they had the control base, and all these wonderful different Thunderbird rockets would fly out and help save the communities wherever they were from terrible disasters, which was wonderful. And I watched those and I thought, wow, this is good. And then I did do in the school holidays. This is when I was still a kid watching all these things. I think I was fascinated by the workings of the whole thing. I never thought I'd get involved in working on the television or film, but at that stage anyway. But I thought, oh, it's so clever, and how do they do this and all that? I think it's just typical of certain kids. We get into the technicalities of everything. Anyway, I I got some puppets were given to me. They were called Pelham puppets, and you could buy them in the shops then. Sadly, the firm is defunct now, but in fact, some of the early puppets are valuable now. People, they sell them on eBay for quite a lot of money. But anyway, I got a few of those, and I set up a stage in the summer, certainly in the summer, the school holidays. And my stage was basically an upturned kitchen table. I mean, really rough. And I put it out into I was on the first floor, or our flat was on the first floor, this block of flats. And the stairs going up to the second floor was like a raked auditorium. So the kids from the flats who were, running around, I said, "You want to see a free show?" Anyway, they came round. I had a wind-up gramophone. Oh, my goodness. And I didn't have a choice of music. It was more or less, I think I was given it by an auntie or something. So I wound this thing up and it played. And there were 78, these old 78 plastic records, really a bit fragile. But anyway, I put this thing on, and it was like Victor Sylvester Orchestra, rather boring. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. I'm sure there are people out there that love it. But anyway, I thought it's music and they can dance, and I did all this. And I had sort of like Gracie Fields records, which was quite funny. They were a bit more funny because she sang very funny songs and things. And the kids seemed to like it, and I quite enjoyed doing this thing. And then, so I was quite keen to watch. Another thing I used to watch when I was a kid was Sunday Night at the London Palladium, which was on ITV, and it was a variety show. Of course, the London Palladium, it was this amazing, wonderful variety theatre anyway. And they had all the great big stars from America and England, and you had all the comedy people, but there were puppets even on that. And the first lot I think I saw, if I remember, was Pinky and Perky. I don't even remember them. There were two little pigs, and they danced to what they did was they used to speed up the records. They were quite popular tunes, and these little squeaky voices which I couldn't possibly do, and they were marionettes, and they did little turns, and that was great fun. Another one that I really loved, and I thought, I don't know how they did it, was a little mouse called Topo Gigio, and he was from Italy, and he had this gorgeous little voice, but he was worked what you call black theatre, which is the puppeteers with three of them, and they were dressed up in black, and you had side lighting obviously from the side, and they put the puppet in there, and then you had a human, like somebody like Bruce Forsyth or some comedian would come on and sit and chat to and this lovely little thing, and it worked so beautifully, had a lovely personality, and I thought that was really very good. But then I even liked ventriloquism, it's a sort of form of puppetry. And there was a lovely man called Arthur Worsley who had quite a traditional sort of vent doll called Charlie Brown, and he was a naughty boy. And it was quite funny because I think it was a bit unusual. He was quite special at because his face was very sort of more like this, and he never smiled, didn't pull any faces. And this puppet said, "Are you all right, love?" And because I'm not doing ventriloquism act, but it was that. And I found that was hilarious. But there was all the comedians, Tommy Cooper and, Harry Seacombe and the Goons and all that sort of stuff. So really, I loved all that sort of showbiz, if you like. And so that influenced me. But then I discovered, I hope you don't mind, this is my life story I'm telling you now.
No,
but anyway, my beginnings was all that at the school. But then I had a friend when I got this all happened when I was about sort of 7, 8, 9, that sort of age. And then I carried on doing sort of shows in the summer holidays or whatever. I mean, they weren't really, I was going to say they weren't terribly good. But anyway, I was learning to play to an audience, which was nice. And what was very great fun was I had a friend at school who went to drama school on the Saturday morning. We didn't have enough money for all that, so sadly we couldn't go. But he was very nice, and we made, we were a friend at school. We weren't in the same class, but we used to meet in the playground and chat and all that. Anyway, he said that he'd heard there was an audition going because they wanted young boys to play workhouse boys in a new musical. I thought, oh, what's this? And he said, well, you could come along as well because, you know, you can sing and all that. I said, well, yes. Anyway, I went along with him, and it was actually for the musical Oliver, which was a Lionel Bart musical, which was, you know, became very, you know, big stuff in the end. But this was way back in about, I think 61, 62, that sort of time. I'm very bad with the years now. Anyway, so we went along and auditioned. Alan sang and I sang. I can't remember where it was or what we sang, but we did, you know, little bits. So it's a whole load of kids. I mean, it's all these boys, you know, they were picking out, no, thank you, yes, you. Anyway, Alan, they all said, yes, right, Alan's right. And they listened to me. They said, well, you're all right, but you're a bit too tall. You're taller than the boy who was going to play Oliver, a boy called Keith Hampshire. And so I didn't get it. So I was a bit disappointed, you know, walking home. But anyway, Alan was great. I got free tickets from him to go and see the show, you know, sort of thing. So I saw it about 4 times, and it was a fabulous musical. I mean, I loved it. But walking home after that, I suddenly thought, look, you know, I'm either too tall, I'm too small, I'm, you know, blah, blah, blah. I think what I could do is concentrate on puppets, because you don't have to, you know, see you at all in those days. So you can just do a puppet on your hand or on strings or whatever. And so I started to think seriously about becoming a puppeteer. Now I was 15, I think, by then. And so I discovered from writing to the man called Bob Pelham, who was the Pelham Puppets maker, and he wrote back to me. Is a great guy for kids, you know, keeping kids informed about puppets and stuff. Because in those days, in a way, one didn't, you know, it wasn't the internet. You could just click and find out about all sorts of stuff. Well, you know, there wasn't any of that. And so you were a bit sort of, you know, left on your own. Anyway, Bob wrote back and said, there's a puppet theatre called the Little Angel Theatre in Islington, North London. And you never know, you should go along and see them, and they might, you know, ask for you know, they might even employ you. You never know. And I thought, oh, fantastic. Anyway, I went along there, and I was probably about 14, I think. I was a bit younger than 15 because I was still at school. And I found the place absolutely amazing. There was a string puppet show at that stage. They did all sorts of puppets, but the string ones were famous by the artistic director. His name was John Wright. He was the founding director of the theatre. He got the theatre built. I mean, it was built from an old temperance hall that was next to a church called St. Mary's in Islington. And when the church was bombed in the war, the church ruined, building fell onto the temperance hall. It was so close, and it ruined the roof. So the Temperance Society sort of moved out. It was just more or less derelict. I mean, the 4 walls were there, but the roof was completely ruined and things were growing out. It was quite, you know, wasn't. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Anyway, he saw this building, and it came with a workshop next door, which was basically it was a workshop that it was a joiner's, I think that's right. And so they were doing all sorts of wonderful work, but and the guy was going to sort of retire perhaps in 10 years. So John would acquire he didn't want to chuck him out, you know. So we moved, or the theatre was set up. He founded a charity. He made the theatre a charity so that they got funding from various organisations, and the theatre opened in November 1961. So when I got there, it was sort of 62 or whatever, 63, I think. I can't remember. Anyway, and I saw this amazing string puppet show called The Little Mermaid, which is not like the Disney one, if you can remember the Disney cartoon. This was the original Hans Christian Andersen story, which is actually quite sad. I mean, the mermaid, you know, is given legs by this wicked sea witch, not wicked, but the sea witch. And she then sees the prince, falls in love with the prince, but she can't speak because the sea witch said, you can have legs, but you can't speak. So she had to sort of, you know, proclaim her love to the prince just by, looking beautiful, which she was. Anyway, sadly, the prince didn't take to her. he thought that a real princess called Jasmine had saved him. He'd been in a shipwreck, and when he woke up, the mermaid, in fact, had saved him and put him on a rock. And then suddenly there was these group of ladies came along. One of them was this princess, and she hid. And the Jasmine, and he thought, oh my goodness, you've saved my life. And then of course they met again and they married. And anyway, the sad thing was the mermaid is on the boat at the last scene, and she goes across and sees the prince and Jasmine lying together on their sort of bed, and then she moves a sort of a sailor cloth. When you see them, it's visually, it's beautiful. And she bends over and she kisses the prince, and then she can't speak, and then she goes away and she goes onto the sort of parapet of the boat and jumps into the water, and she becomes part of the sea, forever flowing, endlessly flowing, or something. I mean, the script was wonderful. Anyway, I just went, oh my goodness, I'd never seen anything so beautiful, and the music was wonderful. The puppets were all carved out of wood, beautiful. I mean, John Wright was famous, I didn't know at the time, but was famous for carving, and I mean, brilliant, absolutely wonderful jointed figures and beautiful heads. And anyway, I was just fascinated. So I used to come at weekends and sort of show people to their seats and try, and they didn't mind, you know, they thought it was good. And then eventually I got enough courage to write a letter, because again, I didn't feel like phoning. So I wrote a letter to John Wright saying, look, I would love to join the company if it was anything, you know, if it was possible. I'm coming up to 15. I think, you know, when my youth, you could leave school at 15, although my father wasn't happy, but I'll tell you about that. Anyway, I wrote to him and he said, well, come along and have an interview with us. And I thought, oh, fantastic. So I went along, and I remember his voice when I knocked on the door. One of the company opened the door, and I could hear this voice saying, is his mother with him? And I said, no, John, said the lady. And then I thought, I never go to an interview with my mother. Anyway, not that I didn't like her. But anyway, so I arrived, and bless him, he said, look, you know, we'll take you on because we've seen you over the weekends, and, you know, you seem really absolutely, you know, keen to be a professional puppeteer, but it's going to take quite a long time, and you can't do it overnight. And I thought, no, I know, don't worry, I just want to be part of the theatre. I hated school. I mean, I was not academic at all. And I couldn't wait to leave the senior school. I love my junior school, all the infants, but when I got to the senior school, it was a school, unfortunately, that was sport crazy. And I was not a sporty type at all. So it was like, oh dear. Anyway, so I did join the theatre. I stayed there for 8 months initially. Sadly, I didn't get paid. It was basically said, look, we can't afford, we've just set up in the last couple of years. You know, you'll have to sort of, what we'll do is we'll teach you as much about puppetry as we possibly can, and that will be it. And you'll have to supply your own money to get to the theatre and lunches and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, I went home after this interview and I said, hi, Mum, I've got the job. And they went, oh, very nice. And my father was a teacher. This is the thing. And he said, so how much are they going to pay you? And I went, oh, they're not paying me. And I was innocent. And I said, they're not paying me, but they're going to teach me everything about puppetry, and, you know, and that will be that. And I thought, oh. And anyway, my mother and father went off into the kitchen, and I thought, oh no, my whole life's going to be ruined. I bet they'll come back and say no. But actually, they came back. I mean, I thought they were away for about half an hour. It was only about, you know, a couple of minutes. And they came out of the kitchen, came back and said, look, we've decided we'll give you 6 months, because 3 months for you to see whether you really like it and if it's going to be, because they'd known I visited the theatre before, so, you know, it was a safe place and all that. Anyway, and 3 months to see whether they like you, you know. So I thought, well, that's fair enough. So anyway, that's what happened. But sadly, my father died when I was 16. And so they very nicely gave me £2 a week. Now we're talking about 1964, 65. So, you know, the pound was worth a little bit more money then. But even so, I used to be very dreadful. And this is where I used to go on the tubes. Now the tubes were a bit different. We didn't have the Victoria line or anything like that on all the automated things. So I used to say, one from Old Street, please, and only pay the one fare. Wicked, absolutely wicked. But I had to survive. And then I got the cheapest dinners in the cafe up the road. I always remember this wonderful lady. I don't know where she was from, but she was funny. And I'd say, she said, "What do you want?" I said, "Shepherd's pie, chips and peas." "Yeah, yes, shepherd's pie, chips and piss." And I went, "No, pea," and she couldn't say peas, bless her. But it's funny the things you remember when you're a kid. But I really learned, everything. It's the best way to learn is to be an apprentice. Because obviously I did scene changes and stuff. I've got my book here. I'll show you some pictures just to give you an idea of what the theatre looked like. Just bear with me for a second. Now, I don't know whether I'm going to put them close. Sorry, it's the bit. That's John Wright standing. That's the Little Angel Theatre. I'm the young boy at the bottom. His wife, Lindy, is sort of at his sort of there. Whoops. And there was another puppeteer called Christopher Leith and Joyce and Mary. And that was me. That was us when I first started. There's me blowing a rubber tube. Now, that was fun enough for the Little Mermaid story. And there was the Witch's Bowl, and it was, where all the spells, and there was a red light in it, and there was this rubber tube that went to a hole in the stage, and the Witch's Bowl had a hole at the bottom of it, and I blew smoke. I had to smoke a cigarette and blow this cigarette smoke. It looked amazing from the front, but luckily I didn't get the habit of smoking. Oh, there you are. There is this young boy again at the theatre, and that's the puppet. That was, now it's a bit tricky to see. Sorry, it's a bit blurry, but I'm standing on what we call the bridge above the stage to work the marionettes, and there's a witch or something under there, and that's that was the proscenium arch at the time. It's a sort of letterbox type shape, and we're all standing out there. And then I think there's another one. Oh, there we are. That's Lindy, myself in the middle, and John Wright. And that was Rapunzel. That was another show we did. The girl that had the long plait, and the prince climbs up, and I'm holding the prince, I think. There. Oh yes, and John's probably holding the witch. Yes, he is. But anyway, there you go. So that was what I looked like in those days, and it was so exciting. I absolutely loved it. I also went to another puppeteer's class. Actually, she was a lovely lady called Violet Philpott, and she was married to A.R. Philpott, and he was known as Pantobuck, and they did wonderful glove puppetry. And I think I learned a lot about glove puppets from them. And in fact, I produced my own one-man glove puppet show too, which was great. So you can tell I'm sort of going through and meeting loads of people. I think a building makes people want to go to it to see, and loads of puppeteers, foreign, puppeteers, English, obviously, and they would all come to see shows at the theatre, because it's so unusual to have a theatre for puppets in this country at the time anyway. But I also joined an organisation called the British Puppet and Model Theatre Guild. Now, I joined that before I went to the Little Angel, and that was basically for amateurs and professional puppeteers. And it just turned out that it was in Vauxhall. I lived in South London, Stockwell, and it was a short bus ride away. And I think it was on a Tuesday night, 7 till 9 or something. And my parents let me go to that. And it was in a sort of church hall, St. Gabriel's Hall. And I met a lot of very famous, I didn't know they were famous, but puppeteers. One couple was Jan and Anne Hogarth, and they were founders of the Hogarth puppets. But their claim to fame, as far as the public would know, was the famous puppet Muffin the Mule that was on television from 1946 to 1955. And it was this lovely string puppet which danced on a piano, and John Mills's sister, who was quite a well-known actor, her name was Annette Mills, and she played the piano and the puppet dance. This was all for children, kids' shows. But it was, again, I did see a little bit of that. I didn't see a lot, but I ended up working for Jan Bustle and Anne Hogarth, and I do occasionally now, after all these years, work Muffin for the family, who sadly Jan and Anne have since died, but their grandchildren have grown up and have some of the puppets, and Muffin, they have, and I borrow him to operate. I did a pantomime with him a few years ago now at Theatre Royal Windsor, which was great fun. And oh, you know, anyway, it turns out, this is the irony of the whole thing. I became a member at age 14 of the Puppet Guild, and now I'm the president of the guild, which is
awesome.
extraordinary. I know, it's weird, isn't it, how these things, but that happened about 8 or 9 years ago. But it's great fun. It's changing now. A lot of new members have joined, and we've got all sorts of young people as well as older people. And we do a lot of Muppety type puppets and all sorts of things. But anyway, look, I've whittled on you. I'm sure you've got another question you want to ask, because I would just carry on talking like a one-man radio show.
So you mentioned the hog graphs. Is that pronounce that right?
That the Hogarth puppets.
Hogarth, sorry.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
Because you actually like toured and worked with them on like holiday camps and stuff, and
yes,
it was that led you into Rainbow, which was the next step. So how did the transition go from working like holiday camps and theatres to TV? What was that like?
Well, you know, it was one of those fluke things, really. I've been working with the Hogarth puppets, doing in fact, the park shows as well in a caravan. It was great fun. And I'd still worked at the Little Angel on and off. I mean, I'd sort of started to freelance then, because I got to know so many different puppeteers, and I was doing my own glove puppet shows as well. Anyway, I had a friend who was part of the Little Angel but had left and formed his own company with his partner. And they'd got really, you know, puppetry, I suppose, in the 70s was becoming to be a bit more sort of fashionable, if you like. And certainly the television companies were thinking, oh, we must have some more puppets. They're proving to be a good audience maker for their, especially in the independent telly, you know, ITV. Anyway, my friend John Thurtle, he was one of the puppeteers, and he was working on Rainbow. Rainbow started, and I've got it written down when it first started. It started on the 16th of October, 1972. And the first puppeteer on it was a person I've already mentioned, Violet Philpott. She did the original Zippy puppet, and she made him too. He was slightly different looking to the one. This is the sort of more fashionable one, the one. And sadly, she did her back in. She did a disc or something. And John Thurtle, who was a friend of hers as well, I mean, she had so many different friends, you know, she asked if he could take over, and he did, and he worked Zippy. As it happened, we normally as puppeteers would, you know, do the voice and everything with the puppet. It's a sort of natural thing. But because they'd chosen a lady puppeteer, they got a voice artist in. And the first one they got in was a man called Peter Hawkins, who was quite famous for doing Bill and Ben, the Flower Pot Men, and Mr. Turnip, I think, was on television. These are all in the 50s. And so he was quite used to voicing for puppets. And then he left after the first series, and another man called Roy Skelton took over, and he voiced Zippy. But by the second series, they brought the puppet George in, the hippo, the pink hippo. And so he voiced both of those puppets. So as puppeteers, we were just lip-syncing to his voice. And anyway, John was doing the same for a bit, but his partner was a very good writer, still is a very good writer, and he wrote a series called Button Moon, which is another puppet series that, you know, is really popular, with all puppets made out of sort of you know, bleach bottles and milk bottles and lovely shapes, and it was very popular for young kids.
Bean can for the rocket, wasn't it?
That's it. And it shot up and it went to button, and the moon was a button. You know, it's very clever. Anyway, his name is Ian Allen, and the two of them were a great team together. But it meant that John was the puppet maker in a way, and Ian was the writer. And so he had to leave Rainbow, and because he knew me very well, he phoned me up and said, "Oh, Ronnie, look, I'm in a bit of dilemma. I've got this new series about to start. I've got commissioned, but I've got to have loads of time to make all these puppets. And would you be prepared to take over Zippy?" Well, the funny thing about Zippy was that I'd been watching it a little bit on, you know, because they're all my mates. And I said, "Oh, I'm doing quite well." Anyway, and So I went along and I went and had lunch with the producer, and it really wasn't sort of an audition. It was more a chat. And she said, have you done, much puppetry? And I said, yes, quite a lot. I said, the Little Angel and Jan Bus. Oh, Jan Bus, he was the one who did Muffin and More. Well, she was obviously a few years older than me, and probably watched Muffin on television and made the link. Anyway, so I was taken on to be Zippy's operator, and of course stayed there for 20 years, which I didn't know at the time that was going to happen, but absolutely wonderful. And that's how I started doing Rainbow. But funny enough, Rainbow was like Mondays to Fridays. We did have breaks in the middle because the writers had to write the next lot of scripts. And so in the breaks, I'd go back to the Little Angel and I was single then, and I had, I was working weekends doing the Little Angel show. So John Wright was fairly lenient with me, because he said, oh, you sold your soul to the television. It's, theatre, and all that. Anyway, but we became great mates, actually. I was so shy of him when I was a kid, working for him for the first time, because, he was just an amazing man that had set up this whole place. I was a bit in awe of him, but we did become, friends, which was lovely to have that. And I'm still very friendly with his wife. Sadly, John died in 91. So in 1991, I should say. Anyway, but Lindy's still around, his wife, and I see her once a week, as much as I can, and I don't live too far away from the theatre now, so it's really nice. But anyway, yes, Rainbow was just amazing, really. I mean, I started, I've got me a bit of paper here because I can't never remember dates. I started on series 3, the 29th of October, 1973. And it went on at Thames Television, which everyone remembers the puppets and that particular set of programs. We did over 1,000 programs. Extraordinary, wow. Isn't it? I know. Wow. And it finished on Thames Television because Thames lost its franchise. I think it was in 1992. And then there was a break. And then the head of children's television had set up his own company, Tetra Films, and he brought back Rainbow, and he called it Rainbow Days. But they was a smaller company, and they didn't have the resources that Thames had. So they didn't have presenter. They'd had the 2 puppets and Bungle. And basically he owned the brand, so he could do that. And he got writers in to write. And we were running a shop, basically. It was quite funny. Slightly different. Funny enough, John Thurtle still made the Zippy, slightly different Zippy in character. And I voiced him from then on. I actually did some voice Zippy a bit when I was doing the Thames series. But what happened there was at the weekends, there were times when Rainbow was asked to open a fete, Geoffrey and the singers and the puppets. And it was quite difficult if Roy lived in Brighton and he had a young family. And he wanted the weekends to be at home, really, with the family, which understandably. And so I used to go with a puppet, and my other friend puppeteer used to do George, and we used to voice them because it was easier to have a microphone sort of near where we were doing the puppets. It was always quite difficult. With an actor, they can just walk on to anywhere and, be there. With a puppet, you've got to have somewhere to hide. And so it was always a bit complicated. So I had started doing Zippy voice, I'm sorry, my throat is slightly bad today. But anyway, and it was wonderful. We did so many different programs. I'm just trying to think. There's Zippy Misbehaving, which was great fun. We went into space. We did every subject you can think of. And basically they were sort of for preschool kids. But my goodness, now running right ahead, I now do these Comic Cons. If you know about those, they're basically, I think they were set up in America, but there are loads of them happen now over here. And I think it was mostly for people that had seen Star Wars and Doctor Who and stuff. And I remember could be about 7 years ago or something, and somebody rang me up and said, look, would you like to bring Zippy to a Comic Con? And I said, you must be joking. I said, it's Star Wars and Doctor Who, and nobody's going to, I'm going to set up there with a puppet, a bit like he's there. And, they'd just walk by them. What's that? It's not Star, it's not the Daleks. And, I'd go to a Comic-Con and there'd all be Daleks and, all the Darth Vader costumes, you can imagine, with all the Star Wars stuff. And anyway, I did my first one in Stoke-on-Trent. I did do it because a friend of mine, Toby Philpott, funny enough, is the son of Panto Philpott. It's weird how sort of vaguely related. But anyway, and he said he was going, and he was one of the puppeteers. There was 4 of them inside the big Star Wars character. Oh my goodness, it's gone out of my head.
Oh, the Jabba, is it?
Jabba the Hutt. That's Jabba. Right. Thank you. Very good. Saved my life. Anyway, he sat next to me with all the Star Wars photograph. You've got pictures of all the characters, and you sign, and people queue up to buy photographs and all that. And people were going by and seeing Jabba. Oh, amazing! And he had a sort of model of it, I think, and various things. And there was me with Zippy, and I didn't even have a loud shirt on. I was just sort of sitting, and they were just going by, and I thought, oh God, this is very embarrassing. But then what people used to do, they used to go by and then do a double take and come back. Is that Zippy? And I said, yes, that's right. And I played him on blah, 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 blah. Oh, and then they'd say, that was my childhood. So right. And so it was fantastic. I started to, I was a bit more, after the first one, I thought, I know what I have to do. I have to say, hello, this is Zippy here. Anybody want, sell it a bit. So that's what I did. And I've been doing them for, over the years now for quite a while. And it is amazing how popular the characters still are. I suppose in 20 years, you've got all those different generations of people. And, I've even got grandparents who saw it now, and their kids have grown up and they've shown. And of course, you can still get the DVDs. And of course, you see it on YouTube and, oh my goodness, all these, streaming outlets and stuff. And I just bring it right up to date. I'm opening the Nottingham Puppet Festival. I haven't got the date in front of me, which is very boring, but in early April. And I'll be taking Zippy along, but also talking about my career, which I'm doing here. And also later on in the festival, towards, I think it's about the 20-something or other of April, I'm at the Theatre Royal. I was at the Theatre Royal at the opening of the festival. I'm at the Theatre Royal in Nottingham with the 75 years of Sooty and Sweep. And I've known Richard. I've actually worked with the Corbetts and Richard. And Richard asked me if I would be part of the show. So I'm bringing Zippy and George to that. But also, I used to do Sweep years ago with Harry and Matthew, so which you've seen a little bit of. And so that's really lovely. But once I started doing Rainbow for a long time, I ended up, people like Jim Henson came over and did the Muppet Show. So, and of course, I'd heard about all this and I'd seen it, and it was amazing, sort of fabulous. The puppetry was really good. For instance, when we are doing Rainbow, we're sitting under a table, we're on little seats. I don't know, I'll see if I can show you in the book. If I've got quickly find it, but it's not me, but it's Malcolm, my other. Oh, here we are. Now, I'm going to, can you see that? So there's a little seat, that's Malcolm there. It's in the studio. And we had these they were like little trolleys we sit on and, wheel ourselves about and with hands up in the air. And it was, in a way, we were fairly restricted, but with the Muppets, you always stood up high and the camera sort of cut off the puppeteers' heads and stuff. And so there was a much more possibility of movement and stuff like that. And so, anyway, to make a long story short, there was an audition. Jim was auditioning for extra puppeteers for the film he was making, which was Labyrinth, which has become a real cult film now. And so I auditioned, and luckily I got as one of the additional puppeteers. And because I did that, I was then asked to do some Muppet movies. I worked on Muppet Christmas Carol with Michael Caine. Wonderful. And again, additional puppeteer, but it's just wonderful to be there. And then I did Muppet Treasure Island with Tim Curry and a whole lot of English character actors. That was great fun to do. And I've recently did the series they did, or the Henson Company did, Dark Crystal Age of Resistance, which was a Netflix series of 13. I think they were about an hour long. It's amazing. Yeah. And I was working on that, and I did, various sort of characters in there, mostly background artists, but it was wonderful to work with them. I'll just show you the labyrinth pictures I've got in there. I was bearded in those days. That's me with one of the goblins, and I think there's another one. I'm sitting on Jared's throne there. Sorry, it's a bit. And that was, again, with holding one of the goblins. We were allowed to take pictures of ourselves with puppets in those days, but nowadays it's all very restricted, and you're not allowed to take any pictures, because you might show them to the. Well, I think it's because of the internet, and they might see stuff that before the film comes out. But so yes, no, I mean, my career I've had such an exciting time, really. I mean, apart from the Muppet stuff, my own shows, I still perform at the Little Angel. I'll be at the Little Angel performing a wonderful show called Dogs Don't Do Ballet in the autumn, which is, I actually dress up as a character, Miss Polly, which is me in drag, which was a bit interesting. Anyway, but also working the little dog Biff, which is really sweet. And then I'll be doing these more Comic Cons and talks and stuff. I bring loads of puppets along. But I must show you little Zippy, because I've got Zippy here. Here's the little one. Sorry, it's a bit awkward with me sitting down. I'm going to bend him down. And let's see whether he can talk. Come on, Zippy. Oh, there you go. Oh, hello, it's Zippy here for Rainbow. Here, I've got a bit of a sore throat today. I know you have, Zippy, but it's lovely to see you. I know, and I'm a little one. Now, people say, why don't I show you my legs? And I say to people, I choose not to show them. But today, for you especially, is my legs. There they are.
Got legs.
He has got legs. But as he says, I choose not to show them, you see. But this little Zippy was made, we did a program, on the Thames shows. It's so funny seeing the two of them. But of Rumpelstiltskin, the sort of children's nursery rhyme or whatever it is. And I suggested to the producer that could we have a little one, because it would be quite funny to have him singing his little song and walking about, on the telly. So, and I love him because he's got the lovely fat tummy as well, which is quite sweet, sort of. Anyway, and they agreed. And so I saved him, and I've kept him all these years. He was in a few programs, actually. He was in Rumpelstiltskin. He was in the Gingerbread Man, but I think they called him the Zippy Gingerbread Man or something. And he, was running along again. It was quite sweet. And so I've kept him because he's, it's quite nice. And I can take him when I go out for live shows. Sometimes I can't show the big one because it's difficult to show him without revealing too much of his sort of, because he's like a big V-shaped body. Yeah. Anyway, but this one's a bit easier to show. So anyway, he's off now. But I'll show you one other. I have got one other puppet. I must try and show you all these puppets because it's what I do. This one is a beaver puppet, and I had he's been remade actually since. Oh, you're coming up. Come on. And he's, I talked about a rod puppet. Well, he's sort of a rod puppet. I hope you can see him all right. Sorry, it's a bit dark in here now. It's all getting a bit dark. But oh, hi there. I'm a beaver. I know you are, Beaver. You're going to get yourself ready here. Go on then. There. Oh, I see. He's just getting himself ready for the television. Right, that's lovely. Is that enough? No, I've got to do my back. Got to do your back. All right. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Wonderful. God, you've twisted your arms up. Anyway, there you are. So, and I had a puppet like him. I don't make puppets on it. I'm a bit unusual, as far as puppeteers. Really? And so I had friends who made them. My friend made this copy of my original Beaver, but this is very much a Muppet type puppet, But he, he's really, really nice. I know you are. Yes, you've got a bit of a sore throat. I know, so have you. I know, I can't help it. It'll get better soon. Good. Anyway, there he is. But yeah, I've been incredibly lucky. I mean, I suppose it's all combinated in writing this book called Zippy and Me, which sadly is just out of print, but you can get it still on Amazon and I think possibly eBay. Look for the cheapest. I think people put them up, they've read them and they've sold them, and they tend to sometimes overcharge. Because I mean, I only charged, I think the book came out when it came out in July 2019. It was £10.99 or something in the shops. But sadly, we had COVID in between there. So a lot of the, but I've got some I sell at Comic Cons and things. But I noticed there's still some. Hopefully, I mean, there was the other week when I looked in. But if people are interested, there's lots of pictures. I've got pictures of, obviously, I've donated to my grandchildren. I've got 4 grandchildren, which is nice. And and there's pictures of various puppeteers, lots of Zippy pictures. I mean, there's me with Zippy and George there. Sorry, young Ronnie Le Drew again. There's me with Jeffrey. Sorry, it's a bit dark. Oh, there you are. It's a bit better. But loads of pictures. Oh, that's me with Zippy again. That's I think that, oh, sorry, it's a bit, that's, that's me with some of my glove puppets, actually, in a school. I used to go to schools and do shows, and but there's lots more in here if people can get hold of it. But and it's fun. I love the cover. They did a lovely cover for me with Zippy taking charge and closing mum. It's all about him. So typical Zippy, which I really liked. But anyway, that's it. But you may have another question. I don't know how long I've been chatting, but probably quite a long time.
I mean, you've mentioned quite a few names so far. I mean, obviously, working on Rainbow, you got to work with like people like Rod, Jane, and Freddie, who I grew up with. And then
lovely.
You worked with David Bowie as well. So what was it like working with such iconic like British stars?
Oh, fantastic. David Bowie was so nice. Since he died, there was a couple of documentaries, and not one person said, "Oh, he was a bit up, starry," and they all said he was basically down to it, and that's what we found. I mean, we were additional puppets. We were in the background a bit. There was that wonderful song when he's throwing the baby up in the air, and you've got the baby, blah 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 blah. And one lunchtime, we were taking pictures of ourselves with our goblins and everything, and who should walk in on his own? David Bowie. And he came over to us and he said, "Oh, hi guys, you all right?" And we all went, I went, "Oh," I couldn't speak to him, bless him, but he was really nice. And we all said, "Yeah, we're great." And he said, "Well, you're doing great. It's lovely to have you here." And I was like, "Well, Dave, it's fantastic." And he was really down to earth. And it's the same with Michael Caine. He was Scrooge in Christmas Carol. And one of the scenes I remember working with him quite closely was the final scene when he's changed, as Scrooge has changed a new leaf, as it were, and he's given the great big turkey to the Cratchit family. He sits at the top end of the table and he's given and with a whole lot of guests as the Cratchit family, and on either side of the table. We're in a pit underneath, holding up our puppets. And of course, they did lots of different shots and, dialogue things. And in between, while they were setting the cameras again, he'd look down at us saying, "You all right, guys?" Sort of thing. He said, "Yes, of course we're." And he said, "You're doing a great job." I mean, that sort of thing. We just chatted, and he'd tell us a couple of jokes and stuff like that. I mean, he was just lovely, absolutely lovely. So yeah, I've been extraordinarily lucky. I've even worked with Tom Hanks. Sorry, I'm name dropping now, but I worked with Tom Hanks on the Disney film of Pinocchio, which he played Geppetto, and I did the live action Pinocchio, a marionette, in the workshop when he was making him. That was the main bit. No. A lot of it was on CGI after that. But he was a lovely guy, really. I mean, I've always thought it's interesting when I've seen the sort of chat shows and they appear and you think, he sounds all right. He doesn't sound too up his own, pardon me. But whereas, and he wasn't, he was really professional. And I was there, like he had to do a scene with they'd constructed the puppet. I mean, he'd sort of pretending he was stringing it and putting a feather in his hat or something. And, you know, he'd try and get it right. And then he had to sort of work it a little bit on his own, just at the beginning, to see whether it was working. And then if it didn't get it quite right, he'd say, "Oh, Ronnie," and I'd have to come over and say, "Here, if you hold it like this, maybe like that," and then the head will go. I mean, all that sort of thing. And he was, you know, I had to stay on set while he was there just to make sure that, you know, he was happy. And then I was like his double. There was a bit where he takes him down onto the floor and he's working a marionette. And I was actually the person working the marionette. And I had his costume and his shoes on. And you obviously didn't see my head. That would have been a dead giveaway. But so I was doing all that, which was wonderful. And I can now tell you that I did a film last year. It sounds like I do films all the time. I mean, it's not quite as much as that, but I was very lucky last year. At the beginning of, was it last year? Wait a minute, yes, it was last year. Anyway, it's a film called A Quiet Place Part 1. And it's about to come out at the end of June this year. It's a Paramount film, and it's totally different from any of the sort of puppets I've done. It is a marionette, a little boy. And I'm this older, I'm actually in the film too, which is my face will be. Anyway, and I'm working this puppet on a stage, supposed to be a Chinese theatre in Manhattan or something. We filmed it over here, but there you go. And I did this little act with this boy puppet. He blows up a balloon, and then the balloon floats up and he goes up with the balloon. It's quite sweet. And then sadly he floats around, and sadly the balloon pops and he falls down onto the floor, and he looks up at me as the puppet. And then I look down and go, "Oh, I don't know what we do." And then I take his hand and I walk him back, and I put him back into a suitcase where he came out of. And that's the sort of act. And then I do another bit, or then something awful happens. It's a psychological thriller, if you like. It's got strange things that happen. There's 2 other films that have been out previous to this one. And this is like the prequel to the other 2 films. And what happens is that if you've got to keep, the whole place has got to be kept quiet. Because if you make a noise, these strange things, you know, creatures come and eat you or take you away, or things explode. I mean, the promo, or whatever you call it, the trailer, that's the word I was looking for this new one. I mean, there's a car exploding up in the air. They're walking through New York. There's all sorts of stuff happening. I'm thinking, my goodness. But I'm looking forward to seeing that in June, hopefully. And then I worked on another film. This was it's a short film, and it was based on the last play that George Bernard Shaw wrote. He was a famous English playwright, and he died in 1951, I think. And in 1949, I think he wrote this last play. And it was for puppets, and it was for another distinguished English company way back then, called the Lanchester Puppets. And these puppets were made, and it's quite a chatty one. I think in those days that was sort of pre-television, but Shaw loved it. And anyway, you had Bernard Shaw, and then you had William Shakespeare sitting down, and they were arguing who was the best, you know, writer, and all this sort of thing. It's sort of comedy thing. And we did a version of that, and I went to Dublin and filmed in over a week doing that with another. There was 3 puppeteers. I was doing Shakespeare, and another one was doing Shaw, and we had another puppeteer to help us do some more subtle moves. Occasionally you want to put something to, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that. It's going to be shown, but sadly it's like a crew showing eventually. I mean, you know, it was probably 2 years ago we did it, so it was a while ago. It's not long after COVID finished. And it's in a Soho screening, you know, cinema, so it's only about 40 people. But hopefully it'll be shown over here, you know, in various films. I hope the BFI or something, because it's not just the puppet sequence. There's a whole documentary about Shaw's life and the things, and that should be, you know, people I think would be quite interested. I know it's been shown, it's going to be shown in America. It's been shown in Dublin already. You know, obviously, you know, he was an Irish playwright, so, you know, they're going to do that. But that was fun to do. So I am really very lucky, you know, still doing all these various things are so puppeteer's life, if you're good at it, can bring rich rewards.
So have you noticed, obviously, with puppeteering, because you've done it for so many years, and you've sort of been round when it's really come up, and you're still doing it. So, has there been any real differences or any real big changes within performing on stage and on TV and films that you've noticed, or is it still really sort of the basics and it's all kept the same how it's used to perform with?
Oh, that's interesting. Yes. Well, basically, there was a time, I would say about 10 years ago, I don't know, maybe a bit less than that, where, CGI came in, computer generated images.
Yeah.
And we thought, a lot of puppeteers, myself included, thought, oh, well, it's so brilliant, as far as the technology, just doing it all on computer, everything, the movement is so perfect and blah, blah. And you can have these amazing scenes and hundreds of battle scenes with, hundreds of people all doing it, and nobody will know it's not real and all that. And I thought, oh, well, I better go to the, employment exchange. I won't want puppets anymore. But what's very interesting, when we did just a couple of years ago, was it 3 years ago? I don't know. The Dark Crystal Age of Resistance. The director was a French director, very nice guy, Louis. I've forgotten his surname. And he specially asked, he said, look, this is a puppet film, and we want puppets, and we want all the actions to be done by, real puppets, no CGI. Now, what was interesting was one of the puppets that I did was a little podling. They're funny little characters. And there was a sequence there was a film version of it that Jim Henson made called The Dark Crystal. And this was a sort of carry on of the story for telly. And anyway, there was a sequence where a podling, this little character, danced, and you saw its legs dancing, and he was dancing a lot. And then you go into the party, and then these horrible creatures come in, and there's a whole thing. And the producers, Netflix or whoever, said, he said, well, I'll have a puppet doing. They said, no, we'll do that with CGI because it'll be quick and it'll be. And in fact, originally they said that we'll do the whole thing in CGI.
Really?
And Henson said, well, we'll go with you, but you have a look and see. And they watched it, and they actually came back and said, I think it's going to cost us more money doing it with real, three-dimensional puppets. But it just isn't the same. There isn't the reality. The movement isn't as good. I tell you what I always say this, that CGI doesn't have the soul of the character. Whereas when you're actually doing it, the sort of, I don't know, I suppose the heart of the puppet's in the palm of that puppeteer's hand, if you like. And so, and there will be the odd little mistake or something, but that we all do that. So it's a reality. It's something that works. And they did actually, in the end, I did my marionette podling, dancing. They got that. There was a little bit of CGI, I think, in the tongues of some of the wonderful Skeksis monsters, which are amazing characters. I think they were CGI'd in, and some of the backgrounds. Well, that's fine. I mean, you can't have wonderful skies and all the rest of it in a studio sort of thing. You can, but it's why not do it with CGI? You can have also, and you have sort of flying things flying in. You can do all that with the editing and everything. So yeah, that was very interesting. So that, in a way, I think a lot of directors now are keen to use puppetry and CGI and combine, and that we're all, as puppeteers, we're very happy with that, because that's great. Because obviously there's some things we can't possibly do, and the CGI can help with that. So I think it's a combination. But I think originally, they thought, when I always remember Lord of the Rings and various films like that, those were just, even Star Wars, and yet they've gone back to using more puppets. They did a few Star Wars films with CGI, and I think people said, no, it's all right, but they're not as good as the early ones. And the reason being, we didn't have the three-dimensional puppets. Anyway, so that's one thing. I mean, I think technology is wonderful, and it has. I mean, the British film industry is very exciting to work in now. We've got a great bunch of people who are brilliant at their work, and Americans will come over, and want to use a British crew because of that, and which is very nice, because you always think, well, Hollywood, and Los Angeles, whatever, is the place where it all happens. But in fact, Great Britain is a wonderful place now, and some of the big studios are having extensions built on. Elstrie's had new stuff. Shepperton's got a few. I mean, some of the big companies of building stuff. So it's sort of growing as we speak again, which is lovely. So it's having a bit of a renaissance, which great for us, great for new puppeteers coming along as well, because a lot of young people are really keen to do telly and film, or not just because of the money, but because of the it's very exciting working with these amazing talented people. So I mean, with Pinocchio, I had a great time. I was there for about 3 months, helping with the stringing of Pinocchio, some of the other characters, and lovely director Bob Zemeckis, who's directed lots of wonderful films. In fact, worked on quite a few Tom Hanks films. They were mates, which was nice. But and we did, I had some other puppeteers come in to be. Stromboli was this sort of big showman with a puppet show in the middle of Pinocchio. There was also, they decided it was all men. They thought, we better have some women, it's getting a bit, the original story. So they had this lovely actress, young actress, who I had to train to work a marionette at one point, or at least look as though she was capable. She was one of the Stromboli puppeteers, as it were. That was great fun to do, to spend all that time. I was very lucky. I had a car to take me off to the studios somewhere near St Albans, I think. I can't remember, it's a while ago now. And mind you, it was during the COVID, or just after the COVID thing, so we all had to have test in fact, they gave us a test before we even arrived. We got to the studio gates, literally, and you'd have your temperature check, see whether you've got a temperature, and if you're out, you're not coming in. And we'd had COVID testing every day, and it was extraordinary. And like lunches, we all sat with a screen in front of us, classic eating, and everything was on in throwaway things like wooden forks and knives, all that sort of stuff. But that was it. I mean, those 2 years were extraordinary I think for everybody, really. But one wondered, being locked down and all that, was really horrible. But things have changed a bit now. People are going out and seeing theatre and stuff now. But it took its toll, really. That COVID thing. So, anyway, I'm wittering on. I do apologise.
Out of your whole career, is there any puppets that you really didn't get along with, like you really struggled to use on the theatre or on TV? And then which puppet as well did you just absolutely gel with, but you managed to obviously show some of your personality through as well?
Well, I think there was a commercial, I can't remember what it was for now, and it was a dragon puppet. And I've been given, with commercials sometimes, they make a sort of mock-up of the puppet, and you go into rehearse, and in a way it's like an audition, essentially. It was a sort of popularized, it was like a traditional dragon, the nostrils of flared stuff was coming, smoke was coming, and the ears wiggled, and they had wings to it, and it was sitting on a rocket. I know what it was. It was for a chewing gum commercial. I'm going to say Wrigley's, but it was for France, so it probably wasn't. But the chewing gum thing, and the dragon had captured so-called an actress who she was tied up against a post. And now, why was chewing gum? Oh, I know. The prince, or whoever it was, coming to save his princess, threw chewing gum to the dragon, and that is squashed, and it stuck to his teeth, and he couldn't blow smoke, and she was captured, not captured, rescued by that was the sort of plot. And I remember doing this thing, and I thought it was pretty heavy, but it's all right. But it hadn't been finished. Anyway, come the shooting day, it was obviously this amazing looking thing, and they had a sort of string thing to hold some of the weight of it up. But I was under this rock, typical puppeteers, you have to sort of hide under, and you put your arm up. You can't. All you see is a monitor, television monitor of what you're doing. And because it got all the smoke, it even had flames. They'd got
wow.
all very clever. But it was so heavy. They said, "Oh, we put a bungee on to help." I mean, I couldn't do the same movement because it was just a head I had before, and I was just doing. It was like very restricted. And that was a puppet I shall never forget. And I thought, oh my God. And the director, I mustn't be rude, it wasn't anybody I knew, but he was a little man with, I hate this, it's so naughty, and I remember he had his letter and he was a bit like, come on, used to do it better than that, come on, and didn't speak as nicely as that. There'd be quite a few expletives. And people were, he was driving everybody mad, not just me, and it wasn't a good atmosphere on the set. So that was, I've always remembered that. Mostly, I've been very lucky. If there's been a puppets, for instance, in a theatre show that's not, I can't work properly, or the rods are, either because of my, I suppose, knowledge and, over the years, I sort of know, I can say, well, I'd like to change the rod on here and put it this way around, and that I think will help a bit. Or I might stuff something in there to make the head move a bit better, that sort of thing. And that, as long as you don't ruin the visual side of it, that helps quite a lot. And, it's very much a collaborative medium, puppetry. For instance, with me, because I'm not a maker of the figures, I get given the figure, and then but I can have my say and say, look, oh, this is a bit, oh, it's not moving very well. Could we loosen this joint up a bit? Or can I do that? And I, play around with it. And because you're trusted, you trust each other, you're allowed to do that. I mean, obviously, if you can break something off, that's not very good. But, that doesn't happen. Now, obviously, Zippy's become, a bit synonymous with me over the years. But I love doing Sweep. I like all these naughty characters there. I like the character ones. I mean, a lot of the characters in the Little Angel shows, over the years, I used to have to play the princes, and all the sort of lead type, and they're all lovely, but they're not so exciting. Whereas you've got a witch, or if you've got something, you can be a bit more, you can have more fun and change your voice, and all this. It's great fun to do that. So I suppose I liked those in a way better. But I've also been a bit overwhelmed by doing some of the, fun enough, the Jerry Anderson characters, not in their shows because they, but it was for commercials. I did a commercial for Drench Water, and it was with Brains, and he danced, and that was, I thought, always, they obviously made a new one, but it was an exact copy of the old one. And I got a whole group of puppeteers together to get the dance movements working properly. That was great fun. And that we did that over a week because it took quite a while. I mean, they had a dancer. This is, again, technology coming in, wearing all those, and I never know what they are, but they're sort of dots all over his guy. And he was doing all this amazing movement. And computer people, copied it and made a sort of image of it. And so we did the live puppet as much as we could, and we strung all sorts of different strings to make arms and elbows and shoulders go up and all the rest of it. And then they mix very well into the computerized version when he was doing something like a tumble or something, and it was terribly exciting. That was lovely. That was interesting to do. I love that mixture. You see, this whole collaboration with all the different people. We did a Coca-Cola, it was Diet Coke ad with marionettes. Oh, there was something funny with that. Now I'm remembering. They were quite nice, but quite big heads, because they had mechanism inside for, it wasn't for the eyes. I think it was for the mouths or something. And the cheek, they could smile. And they were sort of office girls dancing on a table, as you do. And then they'd throw money into the coin machine, Coke machine. Honestly, the prop makers are just superb. I mean, it was these little Coke cans and things. I mean, all, and of course with the sound effects and the music, it was fabulous. But there was a bit where we all had to dance together and do this. It was, the legs all had to be the same, and we found it really quite difficult to all, to be together with it. We're all working these marriages, but we had a puppeteer who clapped the rhythm, and we could hear that, and that made so legs, and that all worked. But there was one of the puppets. Now these costumes, which I normally, if a puppeteer, I say, well, they're not going to see the back of it. I can slit up the dress. She had this mini skirt on, and it was restricting her legs a bit. So I thought I'd just slit up the back of the dress, and that'll be fine, and she can really do it, and you won't see it. But I was being very polite, and I said to the designer or whoever it was, I said, look, I'd quite like to just loosen this, and if I can. And they went, you can't do that. That dress cost £1,000 or something. They're all designer. I thought, oh my goodness, So there was things like that, which were like, oh my, that's a bit over the top. But I love my glove puppets. I have a dodo glove puppet, which I've used since very early 60s. And he's frightfully like that. And he talks. And I did a show. There's a wonderful puppet barge in Little Venice that has string puppets and all sorts of puppets, and it only seats about 55 people. And I performed there in last autumn before I did a Christmas season elsewhere. And I did my old show, which I hadn't done for years. And it was so nice to do those characters. So it's funny. I think it's sometimes with a puppet show or with puppets, it's a bit like driving. You never forget the technique when you're driving. You just, do the gears and all the rest. And it's the same thing. I hadn't performed this show for, well, it's probably about 30 years. I used the puppets, but not the full show. And suddenly I thought I sort of rehearsed the technicalities, but I thought I can't go through all the voices and all the speech, because I improvise a lot with the audience, and we have answering back and all the rest of it. It's great fun. And it all worked. You put your glove puppets on, you start the show, and oh, hello, everybody, and suddenly it was off. And it's like click, body or brain or whatever, it all sort of worked as one, and it all just happened, and it was lovely. And I think I did about 3 weekends or something, and or 3 days a week or something for about over 3 weeks, and that was such fun. Lovely intimate audiences. And then I played a Christmas season at the Norwich Puppet Theatre. There's an old church in Norwich, which is now a puppet theatre, slightly bigger than the Little Angel. It seats, I think, about 150 people. And that was a sort of pantomime Jack and the Beanstalk we did with glove puppets. So, I've been really lucky. So I think it's that. I hope I've answered the question. It's sort of, the characters come to life. I've been very lucky. Excuse me. Most of the puppets I've worked haven't been totally disastrous. It's sort of somehow one manages to work something, but and as I say, it is all about collaborating with the makers or the designers to make sure it's going to work properly, and they'll get the best out of me, and I'll get the best out of their puppet.
I mean, so like today, because you've mentioned about how you do Comic-Cons and stuff, and obviously, and I found you on social media. So for people to book you for Comic-Cons and talks and stuff, are you happy to be approached through social media accounts?
Yes, absolutely. That's what happens these days. I mean, it used to be a phone call. Hello, it's so funny. Now it's all on the internet. Once I had the book published, one of the stipulations with the publisher was that I had to do a lot of my own promotion. And so I was on Facebook, and obviously my internet mail, thing. But I had to join Instagram. In those days, I think it was Twitter, and now it's Threads, and now it's X, or whatever you call it. I mean, all these different things. And so I started to sort of promote my own book and that, and it has helped. And then since then, I do still have a bit of a fan base, believe it or not, with the Zippy thing. It's extraordinary. People sort of will email me or message me on social media and say, look, would it be possible for you to say happy birthday with Zippy or something? And I do that. I can't do every single, I don't get them 10 a week or anything. I do have a bit of a break from that, but no, I'm very happy. I think most of the Comic Cons I've done, some of them I go back, like Stoke-on-Trent. They love me in Stoke-on-Trent, so they seem to book me quite a lot to go there. And I did a wonderful one over a weekend for the Labyrinth. It was I don't know how many years it was, 35 years or something like that since Labyrinth was done. Yeah, and there was a big Labyrinth weekend. That was great fun. We had all the Froud family, who are the designers and the makers and stuff. And I knew them anyway a little bit. And that was lovely. And Toby Philpott was there, who's a great mate, and Sue Dacre, another puppeteer friend. And and we were there for a weekend, and loads of people dressed up. We had the ball scene in Labyrinth, and there was this big place. We were actually in the same location as the girl went over the bridge at the very beginning of the film, reading her, I think, Shakespeare or whatever it was. And so the sort of marquees and things that we were on in this gorgeous National Trust grounds, which was lovely. That was lovely. We only had one shower of rain, thank God. But the ball scene, I mean, the people just dressed up. It was amazing, masks and everything. It was wonderful, wonderful. But social media, I do my best to answer people when they do contact me and stuff. I think I answered you. No, I did.
That's how I got you. Like, I saw you. It was on your what was it called? You're the president of the Puppet Society.
Oh yes,
That's where right. I saw you on there, and all the other puppets. So that's how I discovered you and found you through that one. And then I did a bit of stalking. I found your personal one.
There you go. Yeah, actually, Google Ronnie Le Drew, and I'm amazed. There was pictures there I didn't even know existed. People, of puppet things and all that. Extraordinary. But what's nice as a puppeteer, which I really like, is all right. You can see my face now because I'm chatting to you, but I can walk down the street and nobody goes, "Oh, isn't that?" I mean, I quite like to be a bit anonymous. I don't walk around the street with this shirt on very much. But this is a friend of mine got this done for me. He said, if you're doing Comic Cons, you ought to be, a bit more. And it's wonderful. So I've been very lucky, to have that. But I save it for special occasions,
Yeah. So have you got any public appearances coming up you want to promote quickly?
Yes, I've got, the Nottingham Puppet Festival coming up very soon. Also, what else have I got? Oh, Ronnie, where's my diary? Sorry, it's awful, my brain stops. But, I'm doing something at Colchester Castle in Essex. There's fun enough, it's a Jerry Anderson sort of event, although it's another guy's organised it. But we've got, I'm doing talks about when showing puppets and all the rest of it. But there's a lovely exhibition of some of the Puppet Guild's puppets, but also Jerry Anderson figures, beautiful new ones that are made, but absolutely brilliant copies. And also there's a lovely lady puppeteer who was one of the original puppeteers. I think she's now aged 90, but she's still active. Mary Turner, and she's doing a talk and also bringing some of the figures she's got. In fact, one of the ones she's showing for the first time which I love this figure, is from Stingray, the Marina, the lovely. And she made that figure. And so she's bringing a copy of Marina, especially and that's early April as well, I think. I'm sorry, I can't get dates, but Google Colchester Castle events and you'll see that. So that's happening very soon. Plus, and then because I'm president of the guild, we've got a lot of guild events. So if you Google British Puppet Guild, you can find out various events, and I would probably be at most of those as well. So life is becoming to be a bit more face to face with people rather than too many. We do loads of Zoom meetings, obviously, over the COVID. Yeah. Suddenly, Zoom has been the thing. So thank God, in a way, and I've done so many podcasts here and in America. It's wonderful. It's great fun, and and it all seems to work. So no, it's great fun.
My final question to you would be, anyone out there who obviously wants to get into the puppeteering world and that's just looking for any tips or advice or anything you could just give to them just to help them along, what would you give them, or what would you tell them?
Well, first of all, I'd say try and see as many puppet shows as you possibly can. Look up puppet shows. I mean, become a member of the Puppet Guild, actually, because we have, lots of events and stuff. And it's not just for funny old folks. It's a lot of, as I say, a lot of young people now have joined in, which is lovely. And we've got, a newsletter that's, is online, and we have lots of our online coverage now. We've got a Facebook page, and Instagram, and Twitter, or what's it called, X or whatever it is, and I think there's a Threads one as well. I mean, there's also, so you can find the Puppet Guild on there, but also do visit the Little Angel Theatre. And if you're in London, there's a wonderful theatre in Cumbria, if you're out more that way, called the Upfront Theatre, and they've got lovely puppets, and it's a lovely location. It is in the middle of nowhere, but so you would need a car, I think, or something, but it is well worth it when you can. And I think you can stay there as well. I think they've got, because they're sort of in the country, they've got accommodation there too, and a lovely vegetarian restaurant. But I mean, really good. I know I like the steak or whatever, but it's really nice. And then got art gallery as well, but lots of lovely puppet shows. If you're in London, there's the Little Angel Theatre, as I've said, but there's also the Puppet Barge in Little Venice, which is sort of not far from Paddington, that sort of area, Maida Vale, I suppose. And then if you're near to Scotland, there's a Little Big R Theatre, which is in Big R, which is about 4 miles before you get to Edinburgh. So, and that's a lovely puppet theatre again. So, and then of course there's Norwich Puppet Theatre as well, which has shows on it. And again, they've all got their website. So if you just look up Norwich Puppet Theatre, Little Big R Theatre, Little Puppet Theatre Barge, Little Angel, and Upfront Theatre, you'll find all the information on where they are and what they're performing and showing. So see that. But I think, if you're really enthusiastic, with the internet, I mean, it's so much easier. You can find about how to make puppets. There's a wonderful guy called Phil Fletcher who does lots of wonderful videos and stuff, and he makes wonderful Muppet characters. He also plays Hacker the dog on BBC.
I know.
He's hilarious. He's lovely. And so there's all sorts of stuff out there for people to learn. There is a school, a Curious School of Puppetry. This year it's not running because the puppeteer, funny enough, it is John Wright's daughter, and she is the director of the school. I teach on the school as well, but this year she's been working on an amazing puppet show which is coming to the West End. Puppets in the West End now are, loads. It's called Spirited Away, and it's at the Coliseum Theatre in London, and it's this huge puppet show based on Japanese anime film work, the cartoon. So, but this is puppets and actors, a lovely mixture. There's the one on at the Barbican too. Is it Toronto? Not Toronto. I've forgotten how you pronounce it. But there's a show on at the Barbican too. There's the Lion King at the Lyceum in the West End. That's fabulous puppets. Wonderful musical. Warhorse, which was a famous show that's been is now touring, starting at Wimbledon Theatre, and I think going around the country. Definitely go and see that. It's a fantastic show. So I think I've given you quite a lot of things, but just look out on the internet and do puppet theatre, and you'll probably, Google it. There's a puppet website called Puppeteers UK, and that also has lists of puppeteers. And if you want somebody to do a birthday party or something, you can, go online and get that. So, you can obviously email me or go onto my Facebook page and message me, and I'll do my best to answer and help. But and I do training. Sometimes I've got one person that's a guy from Brighton. He's coming to learn marionetting, and I do a one-to-one, course with him. He comes not once a month or something. So I do that when I can. But touch wood, I'm doing quite a lot of other stuff as well as all that. But I think that's the thing to do. Just keep your enthusiasm going. I mean, never stop the love of them. It's been so exciting. And I think if you get, just, make your own little, because nowadays you can put your phone on a stand and make your puppets and go on and put them out on YouTube if you're keen on television and film. And people will, the directors out there do, believe it or not, watch those things. Don't make them too long. Don't make them just chat. Make them funny or, nice movement and all the rest of it. And you never know, you'll be picked. You might get a phone call or something. You'll have your contact details at the bottom of the YouTube thing, and people will do. I know several people have been contacted that way, and so that's probably the best advice I can give. But do join the Puppet Guild and go and see all these puppet shows. Seeing puppet shows, you can talk to the puppeteers afterwards, and there's nothing better than face-to-face chatting, and it doesn't matter what age you are. Age doesn't matter, and sex doesn't, gender doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? It's about your performing skills and your making skills. There's people that make puppets and prefer just to do that, or there's some that do both. And good luck. That's what I would say to everybody, because it's lovely to have lots of different puppeteers and people of all ages and gender and ethic, just wonderful. It doesn't matter who you are, you'll be good, I'm sure, if you try and keep going with it.
Awesome. Well, that's been fantastic, Ronnie. I mean, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you, and I've heard so many amazing stories from you as well. I've heard more than I thought I was going to hear. It's been brilliant.
Thank you very much. Well, I've really enjoyed it, and Ben, it's been a pleasure I'm sorry I do witter on. I'm famous for just chatting, and you probably had the question, he's still going on, but I've loved it, and I do love my art, and it's been fun to share it with you and with your listeners and watch your viewers, I should say. So good luck with everybody, and thank you so much, Ben, for inviting me. It's lovely, and finding me, it's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ronnie. I do really appreciate it. It's been fantastic.
Oh, you're very kind, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. Thank you.